All right, it's almost time to get started here. If you can go ahead and take a seat.
I'd throw away all my Nike shoes, pissed about that.
All right, I've got 7 o'clock. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll get started, though, with an invocation. All right, folks. We'll get started with an invocation from Erlanger United Methodist Church. Thank you. Mrs. Howard, welcome. Oh, if you wouldn't mind, hit the little red button that is on the stand there. No? Yeah, Mr. Hahn will get it here.
There we go.
There it goes.
That's even better. Okay. Heavenly Father, we come tonight to bow our heads in prayer. As we open this meeting, we ask for your wisdom that we will guide us as we seek to accomplish the goals on our tonight's agenda. We do thank you for all public servants here and throughout our country. We especially give thanks for our first responders and those in our military servants. We praise you in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Missy. All right, we'll go ahead and call the September 4th, 2018 regular meeting of City Council to order. Let's stand and say the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mrs. Howard, can you take roll call?
Here. Mr. Cahill.
Here.
Miss Kyle.
Here.
Mr. Skidmore. Here. Miss Sudkamp.
Here.
Miss Cahill.
Here.
Mr. Montgomery.
Here.
Miss Skidmore. Here. Miss Pitts.
Here.
Mr. Nicely. Miss Fetty. Mr. Blankenship.
Here. All right, we have a quorum. Council, you've received a copy of the minutes of the August 7th, 2018 regular council meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to be made at this time? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion that we adopt. A motion by Mr. Cahill, second by Mrs. Kyle. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. And then you've also got in front of you a copy of the agenda for this evening's meeting, September 4th, 2018. Are there any additions or corrections to be made at this time? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mrs. Sudkamp. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, we'll move into our special presentation. We've got our business spotlight. We've got Furlong Building Enterprises. We've got Mayor Heeman here to speak this evening. Welcome.
Well, Mr. Mayor and City Council, thank you. And as the mayor had said, I do have a couple hats. I am a neighboring city down north of here, Fort Mitchell, and I'm the mayor of the city of Fort Mitchell. But tonight I am a business owner and a businessman with the city of Erlanger. I started Furlong Building 8 years ago, and it wasn't this entrepreneurial dream that I wanted to go out and venture off into my own. It was more out of the game of survival, because when the recession hit and commercial construction was one of the first to take that hit, and I was looking and needing a job to support my family and my wife and kids. And so I started Furlong Building, and we are a commercial general contractor. And after several different years, we were able to continue to grow into different suites and different buildings. I have 15 employees, and we did just under $25 million in commercial construction last year. And when it came to really looking for a home, and I'll say a home because I grew it, I hope to think that I grew it smart, that I've leased space and I were able to grow into an area. I finally went out and bought my first building, and the building I found here in Erlanger. And this is a picture of the building in about 1970-something, and council and Mr. Mayor, you may have better history than I do, but and originally it was, my understanding, it was a candy manufacturing company, and then it became a laundromat, and then after that it became a animal catheter manufacturing and distribution, and I took over. Let me see if I get this to work. Oh, I took over the building, and it was a beautiful salmon color building, and that it was empty for over a year. But one of the things that we really fell in love with is just the multi-purpose and the multi-use of this building. But furthermore, just how convenient the city of Erlanger was for us. We do a lot of work, whether it's in Florence or into the back of Cincinnati and 5 other different states, but we found the convenience of this location really suitable for my employees and my business. So this is what we changed the building to, and we put in about with purchasing the building and doing the build out, about an $800,000 investment for the city of Erlanger. And this is what we tore out the ceilings and found it to be in that good of condition. And so because we have a lot of vendors and contractors that come in, we have a real open space. We have multiple offices, but we use this space as a huddle space to be able to look at drawings and talk with our architects and such. So we really redesigned the space to really work for us. Just some spotlight on kind of what we do. I can't show you, we do a lot in the food industry, manufacturing, and a lot of it I cannot share some of the businesses because I can't even take photographs of what we do. A lot of it's behind the scenes work, but here's some of the examples from 200,000 square foot tilt-up building to new air handlers on a roof. This is a 140,000 square foot building in Monroe that we built. To in-house warehousing, those silos are flour silos that we placed in for a customer. But this is, you'll see the person walking underneath. That is at Rheingeist Brewing. We built the Rheingeist Brewing, and that is one of their fermentation tanks that we had to put on its side and then stand it up from an outside blind pick, which was fun. This is on Industrial Road, the Cadillac dealership. So we have a full house, in-house architectural to, this was the design to, that's a picture after it was done. Bonfiglioli, this was a new renovation of some office, so a little bit of everything inside there. I just have a couple more slides. This is obviously a rehab center to a restaurant and bar, and that's the new restaurant at Rheingeist. So one of the other things that I've been able to take advantage of is your business meetings, your spotlight meetings that you have for all your businesses. And I've been just so impressed with your turnout of how many people in Erlanger businesses and bringing them together. Man, I'd like to steal that and take it to the city of Fort Mitchell. But I think it's really important to be able to communicate with the local businesses and what is economic development. And it is, economic development is, my employees now going to Dixie Chili and eating lunch, right? That is part of the economic development. And that is, being and developing around the city that we're part of now. So we're happy to be here, and we appreciate the spotlight. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jude. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us this evening. Next on our agenda, we've got some recognition for our city engineer, Jim Viox III. Was somebody else going to start with this? I've got a proclamation, but did somebody else have something prepared for Jim? All right, good. Welcome.
Mayor, Council, I'm Bill Viox. I'm the other side of Viox and Viox. I thought I'd, I'm the better side, I should say. I thought I'd take everybody for a couple minutes down memory lane because our dad, Jim Jr., back in 1945, started the business in Erlanger. It started at the corner of Commonwealth and Dixie Highway. The building stood where the War Memorial is today. It was a great town for Jim and I to grow up in. It was interesting to be growing up in a family business. I can remember Jim and I getting up in the morning and going down for breakfast, and you'd have Eugene Fitzgerald, who was the developer of the Forest Avenue, Fitzgerald Court area, would be sitting at the breakfast table handing us our box of cereal. I remember it later on in the afternoon, you get to about 5 o'clock and you'd have Gordon Martin standing in our kitchen talking about Riggs Avenue and Maywood. And of course, just recently, H. Gordon Martin Memorial Highway replaced Donaldson Highway for a name change. We got to meet Ralph Dries, who became Erlanger City Councilman Dries. We got to meet Joe Stetter, and they were developing down Stevenson Road. We also got to meet all the wonderful people that were inside of the city building because my dad was a city engineer. So along the way, Jim went off to college. Jim's older than I am. Jim went off to college, and immediately upon leaving college, he served his country first in France and then in Vietnam. When he came back to Erlanger, unfortunately, our dad got ill and passed away. I was still in college, so Jim kind of had to put the pieces together. And all those relationships that I mentioned came into play, plus one other icon that we all knew, and that was Harlan Strong, who had been a longtime employee of ours and kind of a local, well-known athletic person in this community. He was both my mentor and my Little League coach, and for those of you who knew Harlan, knew what you were expected to do when you were on his team, even if you were the boss's son. And it was kind of cool because when you think back to those days, all the young people from Erlanger, with Erlanger Lions, because they never lost, getting to play a football game at the Naval Academy or in San Antonio or in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. So now to fast forward to today, we're a company of about 30. We have offices here in Erlanger, our main office, and also in Milford, Ohio. We offer planning, landscape architecture, engineering, and surveying. And our staff actually works on projects in the whole three-state region. But all of those people on the staff have worked with Jim on Erlanger projects. Just like Mayor Heeman just mentioned, the convenience that my dad saw about being on the Dixie Highway corridor in those days and being in his hometown, because he was a graduate of Lloyd, still holds true today because, you know, way after his time, you have the freeway and you have the airport, and we design things, and then we have to make site visits, so we don't want to be tangled up in a parking garage downtown. So that it makes a great place for us to be, and we've enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you.
All right, I have a proclamation to read. Proclamation by the mayor of the city of Erlanger, Kentucky, to all to whom these presents shall come. Whereas Jim Viox III, city engineer for the city of Erlanger, is celebrating his 50th year anniversary. He is the co-owner and operator of Viox and Viox Incorporated with his brother, William Viox, a company that has been instrumental in the development and history of the city since 1945. And whereas Jim Viox III grew up in Erlanger, attended school in Erlanger, raised his family in Erlanger, operates his business in Erlanger, and loves the community of Erlanger. And whereas in 2008, Flagship Park was dedicated to the Viox family as the city's appreciation for getting the Dries Company to donate 32 acres of land for recreational development. And whereas Jim Viox III has had several affiliations with the American Planning Association, Northern Kentucky Society of Professional Engineers, Kentucky Society of Professional Engineers, Northern Kentucky Land Development Council, Kenton County and Municipal Planning Commission, Standards and Inspections Advisory Committee, Erlanger Housing Development Corporation, City of Erlanger Codes Enforcement Board, and the KSPE Boards and Commissions Selection Task Force. Whereas the Mayor of Erlanger, Kentucky, thanks Jim Viox III for all his past and future contributions to the City of Erlanger. Now therefore, I, Tyson Hermes, Mayor of the City of Erlanger, Kenton County, Kentucky, do hereby proclaim tomorrow, September 5th, 2018, to be Jim Viox III Day in Erlanger, and do commend this observance to all our citizens, given under my hand and the seal of the City of Erlanger on this day, September 4th, 2018. Jim would like to say a few words himself.
What my brother didn't tell you is that when I did come back from Vietnam and our father passed away, I had no license to practice. And the city of Erlanger, Clyde Rouse specifically, and Ralph Dries stood up for me for several months while I attempted to get registered. I'm one of the few engineers in the state of Kentucky who never took an exam. I went to Lexington, and some of the other engineers in northern Kentucky, three that I can mention, actually had informed the State Board of Registration because of my dad's relationship here in the city and because of our business, they wanted them to take consideration to give me a license to practice. Ralph Dries, who's sitting here with us tonight, along with Clyde Rouse and the City Council and the Mayor of Erlanger at the time, did agree that if I could obtain a license, that I could continue my employment. And as Bill indicated, at that particular point, we were only 5 people working in the basement of my dad's home. And you can see where we've gone from that. I'd like for the Viox employees to stand up if they're here. This is your staff of your engineering department. It's just not me. They work for me every day on projects in Erlanger, and they will continue to do so as long as I'm still here. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the most humble man you will ever meet in your entire life. He's been my neighbor for 45 years, never had an argument, never had a fight. Love him dearly. One of his cherished friends from Florida sent a gift. Bonnie and Dennis Keeney wanted me to give him this gift. And I give it to you with all my love, Jim.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Jim, for your hard work and dedication. All right, then next on the agenda, we've got another proclamation for Erlanger United Methodist Church. So to all to whom these presents shall come, whereas on September 22nd, 2018, Erlanger United Methodist Church will be celebrating 10 years of providing free meals to the less fortunate through its Manna Mission ministry. And whereas every fourth Saturday of each month, Erlanger United Methodist Church opens its doors to those in the community needing a hot meal and a bag of groceries to get them through the month. And whereas, with the help of volunteers from the church and community, Erlanger United Methodist Church has been able to provide over 5,000 meals and bags of groceries to the residents of Erlanger and Ellesmere over the past 10 years. And whereas local businesses and organizations have made significant contributions to their resources and time to Erlanger United Methodist Church, including Chick-fil-A, Colonial Cottage, Dixie Chili, Erlanger Lions, Kroger, Lloyd High School football team, Master Provisions, Salvadori's, United Christian Volunteers, and Walgreens. And whereas the mayor of Erlanger, Kentucky congratulates Erlanger United Methodist Church in all its contributions to those in need. Now therefore, I, Tyson Hermes, Mayor of the City of Erlanger, Kenton County, Kentucky, do hereby proclaim September 22nd, 2018, Erlanger United Methodist Church Day in Erlanger, and do commend this observance to all our citizens, given under my hand and the seal of the City of Erlanger on this day, September 4th, 2018. Mr. Howard.
There's some good people right there, folks.
Well, people know me. I'm not short when a mic's in front of me, so I got a few words to say. First of all, I want to congratulate Jim Viox for this 50 years. Jim, when I was on council back in '93 and didn't know what to do, you and Frank and several other members of the council were there to help me along. So I appreciate everything you did for me in those first few years I was on council. So allow you for that. But Manna Mission, what a great opportunity that's been for our church. We've served over 8,000 meals rather than 5,000 in the last 10 years. And it's a great community. We get all kinds of volunteers from the community. I hope the Boy Scouts will take advantage of that when I gave them the flyer, and I hope they'll take advantage of it when their service awards come up. But this is, the community's just been wonderful on this, and I couldn't have been happier when this ministry started. We were kind of nervous at the beginning, but it's really gone better than we had ever expected it. And just to be able to get out there and feed the people who we don't take for, sometimes we take advantage of. We don't know they're out there. But this ministry just lets us know that there are people out there that are actually going to bed at night hungry, going without a meal. So I'm going to encourage every member of council and all people in the community, on September 22nd, come on out to our 10th year anniversary. Meet these people. They're loving people. They love to talk. So come on out and share a meal with them. I'm sure you'll be blessed as we've been blessed. So I thank you once again, Mayor, for the proclamation, and we look forward to seeing some of you, hopefully, on September 22nd for our September 22nd 10-year meals. Thank you very much. Yes.
Bill, what time?
It starts at 4:30.
4:30.
5 o'clock, excuse me, 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock?
It goes till 7:30. So anytime between 5 and 7:30, you all come on out. And you also can meet our new minister. We got a new minister in town, too, which he wasn't able to come tonight because of a prior obligation. So,
Okay.
And
Thank you.
He's a real friend, too. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. All right, do we have any citizens signed up to speak this evening? All right, we've got a few here. We've got, first on the list is Diana Nicely. Welcome.
My name is Diana Nicely. I'm a lifelong resident of Erlanger. As such, I am asking you all to maintain a civil campaign. Be respectful of each other. We all deserve that. Why don't each one of you try to educate the voting citizens on what you can do to make Erlanger better? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we've got Elizabeth Younger. And Elizabeth is here with Dinsmore, and she is going to speak a little bit about the bond issue with St. Henry. Maybe answer some of our questions.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a hard act to follow. It's been an exciting meeting so far. Thanks for having me. I am Elizabeth Younger. I'm here on behalf of I'm as bond counsel with Dinsmore and Scholl. And I'm here to address something that shows up later on the agenda, which is the resolution regarding the St. Henry bond issue and the Kentucky Bond Development Corporation. It's really a pair of resolutions that we're asking council to pass tonight. The first is to join the Kentucky Bond Development Corporation. That's a subsidiary of the Kentucky League of Cities that is simply a financing program set up to allow cities to share their bank qualification. Again, just as a reminder, I know you guys have been through this before, but bank qualification just means that issuers can issue $10 million of tax-exempt bonds in a calendar year. If you're not going to use that $10 million, if you're not going to issue $10 million in tax-exempt bonds, through this Kentucky Bond Development Corporation, you can share that qualification amount with other municipalities, allow them to be able to borrow tax-exempt. In this situation, it's the Covington Diocese that's wanting to borrow money for a project at St. Henry High School. That's a fine arts expansion of the school that includes a theater, a lobby, a box office, a green room, art studio, etc. And they are looking at a project cost of $7.8 million. Some of that is being fundraised by the high school. Some of it is coming through a cash contribution from the diocese, and they're wanting to issue bonds for the remainder, which is about $4.6 million. The city, the second resolution after joining the interlocal is approving the project so that the Bond Development Corporation can issue the bonds on behalf of the diocese. It doesn't put the city in any sort of obligation. It's simply approving the project and allowing them to borrow the bank qualification amount that you all have remaining. It's my understanding that the city does not have plans to issue a large-scale bond project in the remainder of 2018. And so we're hoping that you'll be able to share that with KBDC and the Covington Diocese so that they can build this expansion at St. Henry. And I'm happy to answer questions if anyone has them.
Any questions from council? All right, so what would be the preference from council? I mean, do you feel comfortable enough moving forward with two resolutions? One would be to move forward with the bond, and the other one would be to join the Kentucky Bond Development Association, or would you prefer to discuss this at the September council committee meeting? Any? Discuss it more in detail? Okay. All right, so we'll put that on the agenda for the September 18th council committee meeting.
Okay, great. And
Thank you.
again, if you have questions, we are at your service, so feel free to reach out and contact us.
I think we've received one of the resolutions. If you wouldn't mind sharing the other resolution with
Sure,
us,
I
we'll distribute it for
could email
everybody to review.
that to you if
That'd be
you want to
great.
distribute it. And,
Wonderful.
I think you all received a copy of the actual interlocal tonight, and so if you want to look that over, if you have questions, give us a call at Dinsmore. Thanks.
There's no time. Thank you.
If I could just ask, Elizabeth, we talked briefly before the meeting. Are you guys okay with the timing of these resolutions being pushed off a month? Because if we talked about it at
Sure.
the next committee meeting, it would be our October meeting.
October 2nd.
Yeah.
Yeah, the anticipated closing date for this bond issue is October 19th.
Okay.
So I think it would be fine if people are more comfortable waiting until next month to vote. Of course, we'd prefer it to be earlier, but that's, still fits the closing schedule if council would prefer to wait a month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, next up then, we've got Mr. Gary Meyer.
Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Would this be an ordinance or a resolution?
This would be a resolution,
Says we, okay.
just one reading. or just
Can
one
we do a
meeting.
special meeting after the committee
committee
meeting to
meeting?
vote on it? If that helps them, or,
That would be a good idea. So it's all still fresh in our minds.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly something that can be done. Of course, that requires publication.
Yeah.
So that would be some expense on the part of either KBDC or the city. But we can talk about that with the folks at KLC. They may be willing to swallow that cost for the publication in return for the willingness. And again, it's a resolution because the city's not taking on any obligation itself. They're not held responsible in the instance of default or anything like that. So that's why it's an ordinance, or a resolution versus an ordinance, but that would only be the downfall of having the special meeting would be the publication.
Okay. So, does everybody seem to agree there? That would probably be a good idea. I see a lot of heads on this side nodding. Yeah, okay. So that's what we'll plan. We'll plan on doing a special meeting then right after the council committee meeting
Great.
to have a vote on it.
We'll just be in contact.
I'd like to
about
hear more from Steve Bodie before we vote.
Okay,
Okay?
great.
Thank you.
That's a good idea. Thank you. All right, now, Mr. Gary Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, for the opportunity to speak tonight. Just a couple items. One, congratulations, Mr. Viox, on your 50 years of service. That's an accomplishment anywhere. I also wanted, I know Mr. Howard, and they have left, but congratulations to them on that United Methodist man of mission. I know through some of the work with St. Vincent de Paul, seeing how critical of a need that is and how much of a welcome, some of these food missions are to these families that are really struggling to get by and live on a day-to-day basis. Last thing I just wanted to do was thank all the council members here for their continued support on the reduction of tax rates. I know that's something that gets talked about quite a bit. I know those are tough decisions, but I do appreciate the effort and the thought towards continuing to reduce those tax rates. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, then we've got Miss Linda Dietz.
Good evening, and congratulations, Mr. Viox. And congratulations to Furlong Building Company, because they're on my street, and I love their name and the horse depiction, which is great to have in Kentucky. I understand that at the last committee meeting, I heard that my name was not mentioned, but one of the suggestions I made was mentioned. So I wanted to speak to that. I suggested, for the sake and for service of the people in Erlanger, that the committee meetings and the council meetings start at the same time. Because oftentimes people who come to speak about an issue, they don't know the difference between the meetings. It doesn't make a difference which is which, but having one start at 7 and the other start at 6:30 is confusing and seems a little, could be conceived as being devious. When I suggested that, I really was suggesting for both of those meetings to start at 6:30 for a couple reasons, as opposed to 7. So I wanted to just make those reasons known to everyone. Number one, I think most people can make a 6:30 meeting, since most of you can make the 6:30 committee meetings. And I understand there's a problem with Mr. Burke and as well as Patty with her grandchildren. But I think for the most part that can be taken care of. Council complains a lot about the length of committee meetings or council meetings. So if you move up your time to 6:30 for your council meetings, you'll be getting out a half an hour earlier on the first Tuesdays of every month. And that's something you talk about. Number 3, the staff as well would be getting out of the meetings earlier. So I think it's a win-win-win position for all parties involved. First, the people, who is your duty to serve first. Second, the staff, who's your duty to serve second. And third, to serve yourselves. And in case anybody questions whether or not that's what I suggested at the last meeting, Steve Bodie can vouch for me that I was suggesting a 6:30 start time. So thank you for considering it.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dietz, excuse me. All right, then next we've got Cole Owens here to introduce himself.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, other guests. I just wanted to take a minute tonight to introduce myself. I am Cole Owens. I'm a candidate for the state representative position in the 69th Legislative District, which includes the city of Erlanger, among some other cities up here, including Fort Mitchell, where I live. But I just came tonight not to speak to any issue or anything like that, but basically to listen and learn. I'm trying to get around to all the council meetings in my district. There are 6 cities, so it's a lot of learning, but very useful. So I hope to meet each of you personally. I've met most of you, some of you have not, and hope to make it a practice to be back with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out. All right, and then we've got Ken Points. Did I say that right? From 106 Stevenson Road. Oh, he left? Okay, thank you. All right. He's a concerned citizen. That's all we have on the list. Is there anybody else that wanted to speak this evening? I wasn't joking, I'm sorry. It says concerned citizen on the side. I wasn't poking, I just now realized that might have sounded like I was poking fun at him. Sorry. Okay, seeing that there's nobody else that wanted to speak, we'll go ahead and move on. To the mayor's report. I have a few items I wanted to discuss this evening. First, I wanted to mention that I'm very proud of the city. Tonight we vote on the 4th consecutive property tax decrease. These slow, steady tax decreases have provided a couple things. A gradual decrease that's kept us from operating at a loss. No one has been fired to allow for these decreases. There's been no services cut or even reduced to allow for these decreases. It's been quite the opposite. It's the other way around, really. Strangely enough, our revenue has gone up despite the tax rate decrease. Secondly, though, the lower tax decrease has provided tax relief that's been embraced by our new and existing business community, and that's evident with seeing all these businesses that are choosing Erlanger rather than any place else, and just very proud of that. So there's been a lot of hard work that's gone into it. City is standing head and shoulders above everybody else in our region here. Next, I wanted to talk about transparent Erlanger or open Erlanger or C Erlanger, I think is what it is right now. This is something that, before you go and click on that, something that we've been talking about for almost 4 years. Making it so that there is information that's accessible to the public directly from our website. There are quite a few communities that have used a program or a website called opengov.com. Covington is doing that, Edgewood is doing that, and it's really, you know, it's a nice format that makes things very easy, everything's very transparent, everything's real time inside OpenGov. The cost of it, though, is very prohibitive for the city of Erlanger. And so we've kicked around a lot of different ideas over the course of time, and what Mr. Kramer and Mr. Bodie have kind of spearheaded here is what we would do is update that information on a monthly basis, and that information would be available online here. And if you can, let's see, it's, yeah, C Erlanger is what it's listed at right now. And then underneath here, there's a series of documents and forms that you can look at, including our budget, the balance sheet, where we stand to date with the costs so far to date. Every check that's been written over the course of the month, you can see. And then there's also reports from the different departments, fire and EMS, the calls that we get and the responses that we have, the building permits, and the application, both the applications that come in for building permits and also the actual active building permits. As Matt's clicking through those, that is. So this is the check registry over the course of the month. So this may be newer for a lot of the council members as well. You might be seeing this for the first time. We're still working on kind of fine-tuning the format, and then also working on being able to keep the information accessible so you can see past months as well. But a lot of very helpful data and also charts to make it easy to read. So very happy about that and very excited to see us rolling this out. And the additional cost to the city, what is it, Mr. Kramer? He says zero. Zero additional cost. So it's a little bit extra work each month, but opens things up so that everybody can see exactly what's going on. We're happy to see that transparency here in the city. So then finally, I would like to relay some appreciation to some of our staff. And I'm sorry that Mr. Milliken is not here this evening, but I did talk with him about this earlier today. Some appreciation for Ed Milliken and JPS Construction. During the recent repavement of Perimeter, one of our residents had a stroke. Her husband was incredibly grateful to the efforts of Ed and JPS, the efforts that they went through so that they could still come and go from their driveway with all the many required doctor's visits that they were having because of the stroke. Her husband had said that he wanted to write a note, but he hadn't had time. He said, kind of with a tear in his eye, he says, "You've got some really great guys, and their help meant the world." I told him I agreed and wanted to share it in the public meeting, and he agreed that he thought that was appropriate. So thank you very much to Ed Milliken and Public Works for all their extra efforts there, and also JPS Construction. Thank you. And then one final note, I'll just mention that we've got Troop 239 from Mary Queen of Heaven here. I know a lot of you probably already noticed that the scouts were here this evening. They are fulfilling some of the requirements of their Eagle, or I should say the badge requirements for their Eagle badge. Is that right? Am I saying that correctly? Yeah, okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for coming out. All right, and with that then, we'll move on to the reports and committees of the city. First, we've got public safety, our police, Mrs. Sudkamp, Mrs. Kyle.
I wanted to announce that the Kentucky Chiefs Conference received, at the Kentucky Chiefs Conference, we received the 4th accreditation for our police department. There is so much that goes into that, and it's just incredible. So I'm so very, very proud. Here again, just a reminder, we had filled the Cruiser Day on August the 7th. It was a huge success. People came out of the woodwork to donate school supplies for our children. If I'm not mistaken, I believe they filled 4 cruisers. Their intent was to fill 1. And it was just amazing. I mean, and some of the businesses stood up. A newcomer wrote a check for $500. I mean, you know, it was just, this community, people, is outstanding. You just have no clue. It's just a wonderful place to live. And also, Justin Clem graduated from the police academy, so we welcome him into our police family. Oh, sorry.
Yes, the next item, I think everybody probably has already seen this. Our police department made national news, and this evening I was told that we're going to go overseas, and for having so many babies, more than any other department. And I'm proud to say that one of those babies is my grandnephew, so. I told his daddy tonight, I said, you know, this little guy is going to be so famous. It's really cute, I mean, what they've done with that. It brings a lot of attention to our city, so I just thought we'd mention that. And then Paul Ritter has completed his probationary period, so we're going to be welcoming him. And then, of course, the Coffee with a Cop continued its success. It was at the Waffle House. And so we're glad that a lot of people come out to those. And that's all I have. Chief's in the house.
Fire EMS, Mrs. Pitts, Mrs. Fetty.
Yeah, on August 16th, our fire department was dispatched to assist in a large structure fire in a house in Villa Hills. It's because of the mutual aid agreement that we have with the Northern Kentucky cities that details and approves Erlanger's participation. And it's very good that we have those mutual aid agreements. So I want to say thank you for going out and helping a sister city. The fire department wanted to also give a big thank you to the Public Works Department. They were able to come over and clean the carpets for both stations, and it's with your tireless efforts that you constantly are impacting the city, all the city departments, all of our citizens, and our employees. So thank you so much. One last thing, we want to make sure that everybody knows about the September 8th Heroes with Heroes. This is going to be held at Greek to Me, and it'll be from 11 to 1, so that's this Saturday.
All right, thank you. Anything further? Chief Whitaker? Wow, this is incredible. Thank you. All right, then under Public Works, we've got Mr. Cahill, Mr. Skidmore.
Yes, I would like to highlight on the Silver Lake Park Tennis Court, the improvement program or project resurfacing is complete. They have to have time for it to cure to about 2 weeks for the painting. So hopefully the tennis court will open by the 1st of October. And Mr. Cahill.
So we have a couple other capital projects that are going on. We have the Woodland Hills Drive. So the all streets pavement and replacement is complete. Sidewalk replacement, a few panels and restoration to take place first couple weeks in September, so just be aware of that. Birch Drive, the last payment pour occurred this week. The Erlanger Road Phase 3 work is still ongoing. Congress Street to Talbot Avenue is complete. Our sidewalk replacement project is ongoing. We're completing the Zone 1 sidewalks, so we're doing a good job with that. Street striping has been occurring. All stop bars, crosswalks, and arrows are now complete. Narrows Road construction to start September 17th. The city will be placing 2 message boards along Nelson and Deer Chase along Brightleaf prior to Narrows. We're going to keep those up for about 1 week, just notifying people as they are starting construction up there for the realignment. We would request on September 18th for the next committee meeting, to make a presentation seeking approval for sidewalk concept planning along Commonwealth from Baker to Dixie Highway. And that's all I have, and Mr. Glenn is here.
All right, thank you. We'll make sure we get that on the agenda then for the 18th. Then next we've got administration. Mrs. Skidmore, Mrs. Cahill.
Free yoga classes at Flagship Park from 6 to 7. That's from the 10th of September through the 1st of October. And is there a cost on that?
No cost. It's every Monday.
Every Monday. Residents are invited to join us for an hour of movement, stretching, strengthening, and relaxation. Yoga is what you put into it and what you let go. This is an Ashtanga-based class and is for anyone 18 years and older. Residents need to bring their own yoga mat, water, and props. And then the Bio Blitz at Flagship Park. It's a new program as a partnership with the library. Participants will search for birds, mammals, wildflowers, reptiles, butterflies, beetles, mushrooms, and all the nature you can find. They will need a smartphone with the Naturalist app installed or a digital camera. All ages are welcome. Lunch and lots of STEM items will be provided. That's an acronym for something. And then the Star Party at Flagship Park. Members from the Cincinnati Conservatory will bring their telescopes to Flagship Park to view Jupiter, Mars, and the moon. The city will provide glow necklaces for all the kids. Those glow necklaces are really popular. And it also has a double effect that helps you keep track of your kids better. If they're wearing those and playing with them, you can see them a lot better than all these kids in the dark with nothing. So. And when we get to legislation, we'll talk about setting the time for Halloween.
And reminder that the farmers market's still going on Thursdays from 2 to 6. Your tax bills will be out October the 1st. Look for them in the mail. And in order to get a discount, they must be paid by October the 31st. So November 1st, you'll have to pay the full amount, discounted amount from October 1st when you get them till October the 31st. And there's also a position open for part-time museum assistant. I think it was published internally, and now it'll be published externally as soon as I think it was due Monday or Tuesday, so then they'll start publishing it for the external then. And let's see, Sherry's in the house.
We would like to make a motion that Halloween date and time be set as October 31st from 6 to 8 p.m.
All right, we've got a motion. Is there a second? A second by Mrs. Pitts. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. Halloween will be October 31st from 6 to 8. Thank you. Anything else, Mrs. Hoffman? All right, thank you. All right, then we'll move on to Finance and Business Development. Mr. Blankenship, Mr. Montgomery.
Thank you. The finance staff is in the final stages of closing the books for fiscal year ended June 30, 2018. The auditors are scheduled to be on site September 20th through the 25th. We expect to have preliminary unaudited financial statements for 2018 fiscal year ready for distribution in the next few weeks. That's all I have. Mr. Montgomery had to step out for a moment, but Mr. Bodie is here if he has anything. Thank you.
All right, I do actually have something here for Mr. Bodie, something that I received in the mail. Dear Mayor Hermes, We are pleased to notify you that your 2017 fiscal year-end comprehensive annual financial report, the CAFR, qualifies for GFOA's Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment. Congratulations for having satisfied the high standards of the program. We hope that your example will encourage others in their efforts to achieve and maintain an appropriate standard of excellence in financial reporting. Mr. Bodie, can you come up and get this?
That's a fact.
All right, then our codes, building, and zoning. Mr. Burke, Mr. Nicely?
I don't have anything to report. Dave did send out all the reports to you. If you got any questions, you can call Mr. Hahn. Mr. Nicely?
I have nothing, everything's taken care of.
All right, Mr.
Dave
Hahn?
is in the house.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, so you've heard the reports of our committees. Do I entertain a motion that they be adopted as presented? Motion by Mrs. Fetty, second by Mrs. Skidmore. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, motion carried. Then next, we've got the reports of representatives. Are there any reports from our representatives this evening? Mrs. Kyle?
Yes, the Historical Society, the volunteers are still meeting every Thursday from 10 a.m. until noon, and the volunteers are opening the depot and the caboose to the public on Thursdays. Ed Von I and Pat and Paul Hahn have shown the museum to 6 different groups of people who have called with family and friends in town to visit the museum for a special tour. And we told them we'd like to share this with people because a lot of people don't realize that's going on. One Sunday, they had a ton of people up there that they were taking on a tour through the museum. So that's kind of like, you know, on demand. The next meeting is second Wednesday of September, which is September 12th at 7 p.m. And this is their annual business meeting, and this is when they finalize all their discussion about Heritage Day. There is a note on the window of the museum saying the park is open from dawn to dusk and the museum and caboose are closed. Pat Hahn's phone number is listed for any group interested in seeing the museum by appointment only for right now. And then Heritage Days, of course, is September the 16th, and that is from 1 until 5. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Any other reports? Mrs. Skidmore?
This is the report from the Kenton County Alliance. I was unable to go to the meeting, so I had Diana kind of give me a brief. You might like hers a lot better.
Thank goodness.
Short and sweet.
It says, brief notes from the Kenton County Alliance meeting. Introductions were made and discussion was led by North Key representatives regarding the needs of the community. Individuals were asked to give one reason that why this area was a good place to live. Some of the comments were schools, police department, safe, and a lot of community activities. Members were then asked what they felt was the largest substance abuse area. Most agreed that vapors, in parentheses, e-cigarettes, and marijuana are a major area of concern. The community block party will be held on Friday, September the 14th from 6 to 8, and everyone is invited, and that's at Lloyd High School.
Thank you.
End of report.
All right. Any other reports from representatives this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the reports of city operations. First, start out with the city engineer, Mr. Viox.
Yes, sir. The only thing I have is we're going to read some bids here in a few minutes. In light of the substantial savings that we've been experiencing, my staff did get accelerated and we put 4 more streets out there, and you're going to see shortly that we saved some more money. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Our city attorney, Mr. Gatlin.
Thank you, Mayor. First, Mr. Viox, just want to congratulate you on all your years of service to the city. It certainly is a pleasure sitting up here with you. I'm not a fan of your Virginia Tech tie, but You can't be totally perfect,
Nobody
right?
is.
We went big last night.
But I think it's amazing what you and your family have done for this city and for Northern Kentucky. And, you know, sometimes attorneys have off-the-wall questions, and I can call Viox, and I never get a bill for it. No, maybe it's coming. Maybe they just don't know my address. But thank you. On tonight's agenda, we do have the committee meeting resolution. You'll note that we have one resolution that is proposed, which mirrors our meeting time of 7 o'clock. You know, council can choose to vote this up, vote it down. We can amend it. However, our regular meeting time has been established by ordinance at 7 o'clock, and it was not, and maybe it was my error, I didn't think it was a part of our discussion at the last committee meeting that we were going to change the 7 o'clock time. So I prepared the resolution mirroring the committee time at 7 o'clock. If council has a different thought or opinion, we can come back to the drawing board and we would just have to amend that ordinance, which makes our regular meeting time 7 o'clock. Does that make sense? And then also we do just have the second reading of the tax rate ordinance tonight. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, then we've got our city council attorney, Mr. Wickman.
Mayor, I don't have anything except congratulations to the Leon family.
All right, thank you.
They're icons.
All right, then we've got our city administrator, Mr. Kramer.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to put out, I know council is aware, but the school zone on Commonwealth was approved by the state this week, or last week, I guess, and they will be installing flashers in the coming months. They haven't provided a timeline yet, but when they do, I will let everybody know. I didn't want to push the issue since they finally got back to us, but I will in a couple weeks. There's no word on the speed limit change, so I don't know if that's going to be an option or not, but regardless, I think it'll definitely help out. In terms of Duke, I know we talked about, I gave a presentation last committee meeting. Peter Glenn did apply for a $10,000 grant for the beautification of Riggs Road, which we talked about a little bit 2 weeks ago, but we had the meeting right after that. There are a lot of other options, financial options out there also, so we're looking kind of forward to that to see how that goes down. We'll have an additional grant for the substation expansion that's being planned and the beautification for that. So over the next month, Peter and I will be getting together and kind of give a formal plan on that area, and we'll share it with you and when we get something more in writing and more of a commitment from Duke on a couple of different aspects. As you can see, we rolled out C. Erlanger today, so it's very new. Feel free to provide any comments. It was definitely a staff group exercise between finance, PD, fire, I mean, all of us. So I think it's going to be a good program for us. It's definitely a lot of work up front, but once we get it going, I think it's going to be pretty easy to maintain and continue on. So please give us any feedback in that. The last thing is a year ago today, council took a chance on me, and everyone voted me in. And I do appreciate that. I know it was not an easy decision, probably, knowing my background, I guess, from the police department.
Checkered background.
But I do want to say, and I can say this honestly, that all the staff up here, council, and the staff in the city, from day one, did embrace me and helped me along, and really got me caught up to a lot quicker than I expected to be a year from then. So I do want to appreciate everyone taking an opportunity to give me a chance. I've had one council member a couple weeks ago say that I didn't want you here in the beginning, or I was unsure, and now I'm glad you are. So, you know, to me, that was a good compliment, like the honesty, which a lot of you have here. But, you know, the fact that I understand it was a chance on some of you, and the fact that you were appreciative now that it happened, you know, that means a lot to me. So I just wanted to mention that, since it's been 12 months ago when that happened. So if any questions, I've had nothing further.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kramer. Time flies. Congratulations. All right. So you've heard our reports of our representatives and city operations. Do I entertain a motion that we adopt as presented? Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mrs. Pitts. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All right, motion carried. All right, Mrs. Hoffman, do we have any correspondence to review this evening?
No, sir.
All right, then I know we have some bids to review. Let's move on to the bids. The concrete removal and replacement project.
Yes, sir.
Mr.
We
Beyonce,
took bids on 4 streets, Alpha Court, Beta Court, Kelly Lane, and Michelle Court. If you go to the last page, you'll see that JPS Construction was the low bidder at $336,492.50. Jefferson Contracting LLC was second at $337,000 even. Notice that's only a little over $500 difference from almost $400,000 project. TMS Construction was $354,607.50. And last, with M&W Excavating Company Incorporated at $372,325. If you go back to the front page, you'll note that I added additional anticipated work of $30,000. And even by adding that on there, if you look at the bottom, it's under our estimates and actually under our 5-year street plan budget by $65,114. So we're continuing to experience considerable savings by accelerating these projects under current conditions. I'll recommend we award the work to JPS Construction Incorporated.
All right, we have a motion from Mr. Cahill, second by Mrs. Sudkamp. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, motion carried. Award that to JPS Construction. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Biaux.
Great job.
All right, no other bids to review. So is there any old business to discuss? Mrs. Fetty?
I just wanted to give a brief update on the Erlanger Business Council. We had our first meeting, a weekly meeting, this morning. Had about 35 people there. There is a leadership committee now. They have voted on a president, a vice president, and a communications director. The president is Andy Kelly from Receptions. Vice president is Melissa Doss from Melissa Doss Law. And our communications director is Ryan Streithold from 777 Computer. That's the executive leadership committee. And then there's a tremendous group of volunteers, volunteer leaders that are helping them organize the now weekly meetings. So we started out as just once a month, just to garner interest, see what interests the business owners had. There is so much interest that we had to go weekly. So we have the first, the second, and the third Tuesday of every month is going to be called Erlanger Business Council Committee Meeting, or excuse me, community meetings. And these community meetings are going to be focused on networking. So what we found was a lot of the different businesses around Erlanger, they had different needs and a different desire for this EBC group. Some of them were networking, and that was their driving force. And then some of them were really community involvement, figuring out how to better Erlanger by tax incentives and truly getting involved. So we wanted to make sure that we were meeting the needs of both distinct groups. So the first, second, and third Tuesday of every month are going to be the EBC community meetings. That's going to be purely focused on networking. And then the fourth Tuesday is going to be the true Erlanger Business Council meeting, where we'll have speakers on a monthly basis. Next September, this September meeting, which is going to be on the 25th, is Superintendent from the Erlanger-Ellesmere School District, Kathy Burkhart, will be our special guest speaker. So she'll be able to talk about the different resources that are in the school system, and then also ways for our businesses to get involved with sponsorships, donations, community involvement, sitting down and reading to kids. She's going to walk through all the different options that are available to our businesses to get involved with the school district. So the Erlanger Business Council meeting will always be the fourth Tuesday. For right now, we're going to continue meeting in council chambers. I know there's a little bit of discussion about moving to the King County Library. They want us there. They want that feeling, that vibe that we're bringing. So that's definitely something we are looking into. And then if we have a 5th Tuesday, we're going to have a social event. So it'll be either an after-hours, happy hour meeting, and just very casual networking. So if anybody has questions, concerns, let me know. Anybody that wants to get involved, let me know. Thanks.
All right. Any other old business? Any new business? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the legislation. First, we've got an ordinance regarding the fiscal year 2018-2019 tax rates. This is the second reading.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, providing for the annual assessment of all real estate and personal property within the City of Erlanger, which is subject to taxation thereby, for the fiscal year beginning on July 1, 2018 and ending on June 30, 2019, and providing for the payment and collection of such taxes and the penalties and interest thereon, and describing the purpose for which the taxes so collected shall be appropriated and used. By summary, the ad valorem tax on real estate shall be at the rate of $0.323 for each $100 of value thereof, and the ad valorem tax on all personal property other than motor vehicles shall be at the rate of $0.565 for each $100 thereof. The taxes are due and payable on the first day of October, and to get your 2% discount, it has to be paid prior to October 31st, and they are due on December 31st of 2018.
All right, do we have a motion? Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mrs. Fetty. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Ms. Fetty?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Blankenship?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Sedkamp?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Skidmore?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Kyle?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Burke?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Nicely?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Pitts?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Montgomery?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, motion carried. Next is a municipal order regarding the city council meetings.
So municipal order of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, amending municipal order number 05051503 to make changes to the rules of procedure for the meetings of Erlanger City Council. By summary, this was discussed at length at the last meeting. It is making the city council committee meetings, regular meetings on the third Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. And it also is putting the invocation in the order that we have been recognizing it.
All right, do I entertain a motion? Do I entertain a motion? Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mrs. Sedkamp. Any discussion? All right. Go ahead, Mrs. Pitts.
So as you read, it's 7 and 7?
7 and 7.
Okay. I'm going to be voting against that. Personally, I think we should leave it at 7 for the meetings and 6:30 for the committee meetings. I don't know how everybody else feels.
I know a lot of people may not
Or
hear-
6:30 for both. I'm fine either way. 6:30 for both or 6:30 and 7. I don't feel the staff should have to stay here 2 long days a month. That's my main thing about the 7 o'clock. But I know I've talked to residents that really have a hard time getting here at 6:30. That's why I was kind of hesitant about moving the meetings up to 7 or to 6:30. So I don't know how people here, do you guys have trouble getting here at 6:30, or do you like the meetings at 7? Any issues?
Depends on traffic.
Yeah.
Because I babysit and, you know, it depends on where they're tied up and how long it takes them to get to my house.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
I can walk here in 5 minutes, but, yeah.
I mean, in all the years I've been on council, I've never had anybody ever feel like there's anything wrong with having them at different times. That's just my opinion. I'm fine with 6:30 and 7 or 6:30 and 6:30. So that's just.
And just for clarification, we can't turn the general meeting time to 6:30 tonight. We would have to amend the ordinance, and we could come back to the drawing board next month and do that.
then I'm for 7 and 6:30. I'm for not changing it, to be honest.
Yeah, I know a lot of people may not hear that, but I have heard it pretty much every time we've had any kind of controversial meeting. We get accused of trying to pull a quick one and changing the meeting times, you know, for the committee meetings. It happened with the halal meat market. It happened with the Narrows Road project. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones here that have happened. I had made a list at one time. There was like 5 or 6 times that we've been accused of this. And there just is really no reason to be accused because we're not. And the only reason is because the meetings are at different times and people think that we're changing things. So, you know, keeping things at the same time, I think, is more so for the simplicity and consistency for the public.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Candy.
I still making the third Tuesday mandatory, and I know Frank told us that at the meeting, we could decide not to have a third Tuesday. But, and I like it just the way it is, because if something would come up and we'd vote at the first Tuesday not to have a third Tuesday, but something would come up, then we've already voted not to have a third Tuesday, so we can't go back on that. But if we keep it the way it is, we can either, you know, if we have stuff to discuss, then we come on the third Tuesday. If we don't have stuff to discuss, then we don't come on the third Tuesday. But making it a mandatory one that we have to approve 2 weeks before doesn't, it just seems it makes it more complicated. I think it should just stay the way it is. We have a third Tuesday set up. If we need it, we're here. If we don't need it, then Matt can send us out a thing, say nothing's come up, so there doesn't need to be a meeting, and everybody can go home. This way, we're making the staff stay here, even though there's nothing to discuss. And I mean, you're talking about the early, leave early, start early. If we make it mandatory, we're making the department heads all stay. Whereas if we leave it the way it is, when Matt sends an email out, nobody has to stay if they don't need to. So I would vote no, just for that reason alone.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're making these things very complicated and unnecessary. Like, we're not hurting anyone by having a meeting at 6:30 and a meeting at 7.
Okay.
And having a mandatory meeting doesn't give us the option of not having it. You know, it's just too much. It's just too much.
Okay. Any other discussion or comments? Go ahead, Mrs. Scott.
Yes, I'm good either way. It doesn't matter because, you know, I can come at 6:30, I can come at 7. I was just concerned about the people because I'm thinking, you know, if you work and you don't get home till 5, you eat at 5:30, you have to rush to get here. That's the only concern I had. And I had never heard that we were sneaking in, you know, different meetings until there was one controversy that came up and somebody said, you know, but I don't think that's true. But I was just thinking it might be more convenient for people to come at 7, but I don't know. I mean, that's up to the people here. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter to me. I'm good either way.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, another one was the funeral home on Narrows Road. Remember that as well. Yeah, I think I actually have that one in an email that we were being accused then. All right. Any other discussion? All right. Well, we've got a motion and a second. This is, as the municipal order stands, it is at 7 o'clock. Let's go ahead and just put it to a roll call vote.
Mr. Blankenship,
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Fetty, Mr. Montgomery, Miss Pitts,
No, ma'am.
Miss Cahill,
No, ma'am.
Mr. Nicely,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Burke,
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Kyle,
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Skidmore,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cahill,
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Sudkamp,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Skidmore.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, motion carried. All right, then, next is a resolution regarding the, oh, no, actually, we're
moving that.
yeah, the resolution regarding the St. Henry bond will be discussed at the committee meeting.
And just for clarification on that, it was brought very late to our attention, like 5:30 tonight, that we were not already a part of the KLC Building Corporation.
Yeah.
Elizabeth and I both operated under the presumption we were. She found out at 5:30 we weren't, so that's what kind of is causing the delay here. It was kind of a last-minute change by Dinsmore.
All right, so with that, then, I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn. Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mrs. Fetty. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, motion, meeting adjourned.